Ricardo, in Jersey City, New Jersey, is it valid to say that New Japan Pro Wrestling could perhaps be the best wrestling promotion in the world right now? I have given this question a lot of thought. I truly believe that New Japan has a much better product in terms of in-ring and entertainment value. They have a roster full of talent that can clearly make stars out of anybody, such as Okada, when he won the IWGP title a month after returning from TNA. Yeah, and that's an interesting point. I mentioned that earlier. Tanahashi, Okada, these were guys that, maybe they weren't quite at the skill level they are now, but clearly they had something. New Japan saw something in them, and they became two of the best wrestlers in the entire world. And they were under the guise of TNA for a while, and TNA did nothing with them. And in fact, in the case of Okada, I think, they gave him some stereotypical Japanese bullshit because they don't know what the fuck they're doing over there. And you look at Okada from that period to where he is now, and Okada, is probably the best wrestler in the world in a lot of ways. He's a draw for New Japan. He's probably their biggest star. I know Tanahashi has been for a number of years. I think that Okada has supplanted Tanahashi. At least it seems that way to me, as the big star that they're building around and the most popular guy now in the company. In some ways, on some level, it's almost like, having Tanahashi and Okada together in that company at the same time. It's kind of like what WWE had with Rock and Austin at the peak of their popularity. And that's kind of what they have now with Tanahashi and Okada. There's a lot of talent there. Okada is a great case of building a star from the ground up. They took a guy who was damaged goods probably from TNA when he came back to Japan. They put the IWGP championship on him, as Richard said, Ricardo, I'm sorry. They put it on him right away. He's won the title, I think, another one or two times since. He's got 2 G1 wins under his belt. I mean, he's a big deal. He's a much bigger deal than he ever was before. And that's how you build a star. That's how you build a star. You don't put roadblocks and obstacles in his way or book him in stupid angles or stupid comedy promos or any of that shit. You book him like a star. If you book him like a star, people will look at him as a star, and that's what he is. But to go back to Ricardo's question, he says, he's talking also about the foreign talent that New Japan has, AJ Styles, giving those guys the proper recognition that they deserve, that they did not get before. He says, I know that when it comes to the American market, WWE has home field advantage, but I truly believe that New Japan has been on such an amazing roll from their shows and annual tournaments that it may be a true challenge for WWE down the road. Am I wrong to think this? New Japan is not challenging WWE anytime soon. It's just not going to happen. If they ever could make headway in the American market, it's kind of like soccer, right? Everybody goes crazy for the World Cup. Like, all of a sudden, they're big football fans. And then the World Cup ends and everything goes back to the way it was and nobody gives a shit about it. They've tried, God knows they've tried, making soccer big here in this country, and it's just never worked, and I don't know that it ever will. And maybe it's that way with Lucha Libre and Japanese wrestling, and maybe it'll never really truly break into this market beyond the hardcores. So I wouldn't be worried if I'm WWE, because New Japan is in their own country doing their own thing right now. They have their iPay-per-views here in this country, which is maybe 2% of the audience that watches their iPay-per-views. So no, I don't think they're worried. I don't think they have any reason right now to be worried. The only thing I might be worried about, and I know they don't lose any sleep over it, but maybe they should, is that there is another company somewhere in the world that is making millions of dollars and doing very well and doing 10 times the job that WWE is in building new stars. If anything, if I were WWE, I would be embarrassed. I would be utterly embarrassed that this company overseas can do a better job than they can. The biggest wrestling company in the world is WWE, and this other company is doing a better job than they do of building new stars. That's the only thing I would say between the two that WWE should be worried about. It's being upstaged by New Japan. Business-wise, no. They don't have anything to worry about right now. And, New Japan, though, is certainly doing very well. There was a period several years ago where there was a real lull for Japanese wrestling, and Japanese wrestling is not anywhere near the heights it was at if you go back to, even the 90s, the mid-90s, with a lot of those guys, Misawa and Kobashi and, even Stan Hansen, when he was in Japan, he may be the most popular foreigner to make a name for himself in Japan. Because he went over there, he left WCW, he went to Japan, became a big star, and pretty much just stayed there, and was very well respected, and would wrestle other Americans too when they came over to visit. He had some wars with even guys like Hulk Hogan and Vader. That famous match where Vader had his eyeball knocked out in a match with Stan Hansen, which you could find on YouTube. So Japanese wrestling is not at the peaks that it once was at. It's kind of like WWE now. They still make a lot of money, but they're nowhere near the peak of popularity that they had in the late 90s. But New Japan, I looked it up, and the Observer is great in terms of having this business information, so all credit to Dave Meltzer for this, but they nearly doubled their revenue over the last 2 years. New Japan is expected to pull in about $23 million this year, which is up from 11, so they're on an upswing. And again, a lot of that has to do with their stars getting over. Okada, Tanahashi, Nakamura, who I also think is very entertaining. And actually on Okada, I want to mention this too, because I saw a note on this, and I actually thought it was really cool. Okada recently opened something called the Rainmaker Foundation, which is a children's cancer charity, and apparently he himself will donate $300 American every time he wins a match using the Rainmaker, which is his clothesline, his lariat clothesline finish. And I guess that's retroactive to the start of the year. So all the times through 2014 so far that he's used the Rainmaker successfully, he'll donate $300 to this charity. I think that's very cool. And the guy's only 26 years old. And you look at everything he's accomplished in just the last few years. The titles, the multiple G1 victories, some of the best matches of all time, certainly of this era, that this guy's been a part of. The problem with a lot of those New Japan guys with the style they wrestle, Okada may be only 26, but it's probably more like 36 right now. And when he's 36, he's going to be moving around like he's 46. That's the problem. That's probably the biggest problem with the style they wrestle. But it's entertaining as all hell if you actually watch